Good morning, everyone. We're glad to welcome you here for our second morning Melodies. My name is Christine Campen, and I'm the pastor of Seniors Ministry here at Bakerview. Psalm 100 says, "Make a joyful noise to the Lord, all the earth." And so in our corner of the world, we are going to have some joyful noise this morning with our musical guests, and also our pastor emeritus here at Bakerview, Harry Heidebrecht, will share a story with us. So without any further comment, I'd like to introduce Calvin Dyck and Rafael Brisebois. Welcome.
Thanks so much, Christine. It's a pleasure to be here with you and making live music with an almost sold out audience. 15-year-old Rafael studies piano with Betty Suderman and violin with me. But we're going to start this morning with a violin-viola duo by Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. This piece was written for the Archbishop Colloredo in the summer of 1783 when Mozart was just 27 years old. I hope you enjoy this first movement of the duo in G major.
Ludwig van Beethoven's Piano Sonata Number 26 in E-flat major, Opus 81A, is known as Les Adieux, which means the farewell. It was written during the years 1809 and 1810. He titled the three movements Lebewohl, Abwesenheit, and Wiedersehen, which mean farewell, absence, and reunion, and reportedly regarded the French adieu, which is normally said to whole assemblies or cities, as a poor translation of the feeling of the German Lebewohl, which is said heartfully to a single person. Beethoven even wrote the syllables Lebewohl over the first three chords in the first movement. And you can hear this repeated throughout the first movement.
Our next piece is from the early 19th century. It is a duo concertante by Charles Auguste de Berriot, who was a violinist and a pedagogue who actually started the Belgian school of violin playing. There's an odd thing in the marking in that Rafael's part, he's playing the first violin part, is marked risoluto, meaning with resolve. And the second violin part, which I'm going to play, is marked firmemente, meaning proud or noble. Now, it seems very odd to me. Most music, the marking is the same. And I've been mulling over this morning, why is it that both parts have a different marking? All I can think of is that maybe de Berriot gave this to his students, and the first violinist had a tendency to rush. So he wrote, no, play with resolve, hold back. And maybe the second violinist was kind of a timid player. So he said, no, you've got to be proud and make it strong, in an effort to sort of bring them together. That's all. If you have a better idea, I'd be happy to hear it, but that's all I can think of. I hope you enjoy the first movement of de Berriot's duo concertante.
Sergei Prokofiev was a Russian composer who lived from 1891 to 1953. He wrote in a wide range of musical genres, including symphonies, concertos, film music, operas, ballets, and program pieces. Today, I'll be performing the Scherzo from his 10 pieces for piano, Opus 12, composed between 1906 and 1913. I really like this piece because sometimes the right hand is in 3/8 time and the left hand is in 2/4 time, and it's really exciting.
Last fall, I had a problem. One of my two violists in youth orchestra quit. And so I said to Rafael, would you be willing to learn viola? Because I need another violist for Abbotsford Youth Orchestra. It's sure. And the next week he came to his lesson. He had already learned the alto clef. And he said, I found a piece for viola on the internet. And he had printed it off. And we're now going to play the first piece that he learned on the viola 1 year ago. The Passacaglia for violin and viola is a duo, by the way, was written by a Norwegian composer named Johan Halvorsen in 1897, based on a theme by George Frederick Handel from his harpsichord suite in G minor. Now, a passacaglia is basically a series of variations based on a basso ostinato, or a series of chords that repeat over and over. The music theorists disagree about whether it's actually just a bass line or a series of chords, and they say the opposite. So it may be either, or both, together. I hope you enjoy this Passacaglia for violin and viola by Handel Halvorsen.
Well, thank you, Rafael and Calvin. It's been a bit of a reminder to us that God gives us all gifts, and He leaves it up to us to develop and refine them in order to discover their potential and true beauty. And it's that way with all the gifts God gives us. And when we do that, we use them for our enjoyment, but also for His glory. I've done a series of stories. One, My Little Red Wagon. The other, My Little Pet Sheep. Today it's all about My Little Red Testament. My Little Red Testament is one I received from the Gideons, and I want to tell you the story of its journey. By now, My Little Red Testament is rather ragged and tired looking, and could use some cosmetic repairs. But I would rather own this one than one in mint condition and safely locked up in a safe. It was presented to me by the Gideons in a school assembly of grades 4 and 5 in the R.I. Baker School in Colville, Alberta. The date is recorded in my own handwriting as April 28th, 1951. And it's been my truthful and faithful companion for almost 70 years. I no longer keep it in the safety of a drawer, but on my desk, fully visible for everyone to see. Some who come to my office may see it, and it becomes a conversation piece. On other occasions, I will open the covers and show it to them as a way of sharing my story. When Gideons see it, they respond with one of those satisfying Gideon smiles, a reward for their hard work and faithfulness in distributing little red testaments, perhaps a different color by now, but still the same words throughout the world. Recently, a Gideon visited me and said, "Would you come for show and tell to our Gideon camp?" And as you all know, the pandemic has interrupted our schedules. And so it is today. I am here for show and tell, to show you my little red testament and to tell you about it. To understand the significance of what I want to say, you should know more about the boy who received it. He was born in the home of a Holdeman midwife in the hamlet of Linden, Alberta, on the 23rd of December, 1938. His first year was rather difficult, for he was a sickly child, with a face crusted in eczema, and to add to that, chicken pox underneath. The older siblings had to take care, holding my hands, so I wouldn't bloody my face. But according to my father, after my first birthday, things took a sudden turn, and my face cleared, and they attributed it to answered prayer. It was when I was 4 years of age, a child on my mother's knee, that I first learned about death. It was the day old Mr. Peters, the white-bearded neighbor, who used to always drop in at our place, didn't come. and my mother said he had died. And while I was on her knees, she tried to explain as best she could the meaning of death, but then added the words that she too would die one day. That was the day fear took root in my soul. Periodically, that fear was ignited into a flame, especially when traveling preachers would come to our little country church to preach about the second coming, judgment, and hell. And what resulted was sleepless nights, or fears that when I came home, there would be no one there. I was a boy of 10 when I decided to go forward at the next evangelistic service in our church, which I did, and that day the cloud of fear lifted. And that night I ran home so fast my feet hardly touched the ground. It was a year later that I received my little red testament. What was even more important to me than owning it was reading it and discovering what it says, especially in the Gospels. For when I read it, I discovered a gentler and more loving Jesus than I had ever known before. While Jesus could be stern when he spoke to the religious leaders, he never spoke that way to children, sinners, or outcasts. When Jesus came to the village, children didn't run and hide in fear. Rather, they came to him, for they saw in him a man who was gentle, kind, and perhaps even playful, because they were attracted to him. And when his disciples tried to discourage them from coming, he scolded them and said, "Suffer little children, and forbid them not to come unto me, for of such is the kingdom of heaven." Sinners also came and found him approachable, and found in him a friend who was kind and true. In contrast to his disciples who wanted Jesus to call down fire from heaven to destroy the Samaritans, they discovered that his love also included them. As I read my little red testament, John 3:16 and 17 became my favorite verses, assuring me of his unfailing love and self-giving. It remains the pivotal passage for my life and for my ministry. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. For God sent not his Son into the world to condemn the world, but that the world through him might be saved. God so loved the world, and he so loves me. It's not surprising that my favorite story in the Bible was all about a loving father watching and waiting for the return of his wayward child. I imagine him scanning the horizon and seeing a dot in motion. And as it drew nearer, he recognized a person. And as it came still nearer, he recognized his wayward son returning home. But when he was yet a great way off, his father saw him and had compassion, and ran and fell around his neck and kissed him. All this and much more I found in this little red testament. By now, I read a bigger Bible with 2 testaments. But I still cherish my little red testament. From time to time, I love to finger through it and find those verses of my childhood. And then I come to the back side of the inside cover, and there I recognize my writing again from 70 years ago. There, under the heading, My Decision to Receive Christ as My Savior, I see my name written there, Harry Heidebrecht. And that remains not only there, but in God's book, that remains forever. When Calvin asked me for a hymn to go with my story, I chose the song, which is also our hymn of the week, Softly and Tenderly, Jesus is Calling, with a wish that as a child, I had heard the gospel invitation in gentler and more loving tones, not driven to Jesus out of fear, but drawn to him by his love.
Thank you so much, Calvin and Rafael, for the treat of this morning. So let's thank them by giving them another round of applause. And thank you also, Harry, for sharing a story from your life and your discovery of the love of God. Thank you. So thank you all for coming. We gratefully accept any donations for this event, and there is a box at the exit if you would like to leave one there. Just some instructions for departure. We would just request that everyone wear your mask as you leave the building. We'll leave the front rows first, and then we'll just file out row by row, just keeping our distance from one another, and we would ask that you move right into the parking lot. Feel free to stay there and have conversations with people if you would like. So thank you very much again for coming, and the peace of Christ go with you.